This month on the Key Figures podcast, Bright Obeng is joined by Nikos Manalis, country CFO at IKEA Belgium. Nikos holds a Bachelor of Science, Business Administration and Management, and a master's degree in finance and banking. He has an impressive professional track record, having worked in different sectors in Greece, Belgium and Sweden, from automotive to retail. How does Nikos see finance leadership within his current role at IKEA Belgium? What kind of leadership is needed in steering an organization in this constantly moving environment? And how does he recognize exceptional financial talent? Please enjoy this podcast with Nikos Manalis.
Nikos, welcome to the Key Figures podcast.
Thanks a lot, Bright.
It's a real honor, and I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, for obvious reason. And I always start with the same question. Who is Nikos? What's your story?
First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be here today.
Thank you.
I'm coming from Greece. I'm Greek, from Athens. Have spent the majority of my time there, meaning I have studied, grew up there, and then made also my main part of my career, first 18 years, let's say. Worked in different type of sectors. Also made my studies. I have studied business administration. Then I have master degrees in finance and banking, and worked in different sectors like services, industry, automotive, retail in IKEA first time in Greece, and in energy and the shipping sector.
That's impressive. That's very impressive. Can you give me a bit more information about your current scope within IKEA? Of course, being a CFO of IKEA Belgium, it really says a lot, but I always say that the content of the job is much more interesting than the C that precedes the F. So can you give me a bit more input about your current role?
True. The role in a CFO of IKEA is a bit diversified, meaning that my current position holds four main elements, four main departments, which is financial planning or business navigation, as we call it in IKEA, finance, tax, controlling and accounting, which is another one, then business risk and compliance, which is the third function, and legal. And this is the core part of my business, let's say.
Sure.
Simultaneously, there is a matrix approach of a real estate team that sits directly reporting to a cluster, but for the country itself, report the CFO of IKEA Belgium, which is me. And this consists of facility management, construction, and asset management, which are really crucial and important elements because, you know, in a company like IKEA with so many big value assets, you need to have this type of function.
Sure. Really makes sense. And actually, it's great to talk to someone from IKEA, because I have to confess, I am also a client for many years, and it's also interesting to see the machinery. Talking to you, we had a chat before the camera started rolling behind a brand like IKEA. The reason why I wanted to talk to you today is obviously to talk to you about finance leadership. I think the past 18 months has been very change oriented, and how to navigate actually your finance function in that. How do you see finance leadership as such within your current role, but also as a person?
I think it starts with the personal way you drive your initiatives and your agenda, or let's say it's the self-leadership.
Yes.
I think in the aspect of self-leadership, there are many elements. It's discipline, it's responsibility, it's commitment. It's also the fact and the need that you have to have for yourself for self-assessment every time of if you did things the way you should have done them, or is there something that you should have done differently. Not to be judgmental to yourself, but at least to be, you know, self-evaluating every time your actions and your everyday reality. And of course, the willingness to change, because we are living, especially nowadays, in an environment that you need to change and to accept change.
Yes.
So I think that self-leadership is fundamental. And especially when you lead other people, you know, the team consciously or unconsciously take the reflection of the leader. The team sees a role model, and then you are double-checked by yourself and by the rest team. If we come now to the finance leadership, the big change, dramatic, that has happened in the last year is that the finance department are implemented in the business. Years ago, the finance department were something like a back office, stayed to their own behind the curtain, and they were staying there retroactively doing things. Today, finance department are engaged in the front line of the business. They are proactive. They are partners in the business, and they are working together hand in hand. You see that many successful companies have integrated the finance department in every step of the business and to the development plans.
Yes.
And this has brought a successful.
Sorry for interrupting. I also like the fact that one of the pillars that you are obviously responsible for as CFO of IKEA Belgium, you actually coined it as business navigation, or it's already coined as business navigation, which says a lot that the finance function is not only recording the past and helping to make a projection, but it is seen as a navigating tool moving the business forward. So I really fully understand the gravitas, I would say, in having finance play that role.
So you have to have the maturity, of course, and also to understand that you need to change, as we said before, because the change is happening in the real time in business.
Yes, indeed. This is really a nice step to move to the next question that I have for you, because you mentioned a lot that leadership says a lot about how self-aware you are, but what kind of leadership is needed in steering an organization that is constantly in change, especially in the very moment that we are as we're recording this? There is a lot of change going on due to the pandemic. How do you do that from a hat as a CFO?
First of all, you need to go out of the denial box. You need to embrace the change. You need to embrace the transformation. You need to believe in it. And if you believe in it, you're getting yourself in it, and also you become a good communicator of it. You become a good ambassador of it. I think you have to create, first of all, clarity.
Yes.
Because behind everything, we are talking about people, we are talking about human beings, we are talking for their families. So we have to be also a lot sensitive with our decisions and what they will create. So people need clarity for what we are heading towards. Whatever this is might be good for the business only or in the middle. Usually it's in the middle for people in business happening this. But in the same moment, they need to understand the direction. So you need to create a clear path of direction. Then, because the plan is one thing, but reality proves another one. You have to be ready and to be agile to change your plans, to change the direction, and on this one you need to have the people with you.
Sure.
So then comes the part of communication. When you have to communicate, what is the material that you have to communicate and what is the audience? Because it sounds simple, but it's super crucial to be able to communicate the right material on the right time to the right audience and to create the good cascade.
Yes.
I would say that also you need decisiveness. Many times you'll find yourself in front of dilemmas. And it has to take only one choice, so you have to make your path. And people need to see that there is a leader that can take the gravity of the decision and the consequence, the pros and the cons, whatever, but at least there is a clear direction. And last but not least, if you allow me the last one, it's
please.
Compassion. Because people need to feel the freedom of what they're doing, that even if it has a small deviation from the plan or another result, they will not be criticized or be treated tough for their mistake. They need to have the freedom of making the mistake, especially in transformation periods.
I like especially, obviously, everything you just said, but for me, what I feel when I talk to other CFOs is that creating this safe space for people to make mistakes is also a great way to foster an environment where growth is possible. How do you instill this even though there is no crisis? Because I can imagine that in a business as usual setting, you also need to create a culture where people feel safe to make a mistake. That in the moment that when there is a crisis or when there is, I would call it, an accelerated rate of change, that they also feel that I can also make a mistake as long as it is moving the business forward? How do you do that?
I will borrow a quotation from Peter Drucker that he used to say that culture is eating strategy for breakfast. and it's reality, it happens. I have seen it myself. So coming back to your question, I think it's super crucial for the company or the organization that is making either a prepared transformation or a sudden transformation that, for example, COVID had brought us all in a surprise. You have to have a strong culture. You have a culture that people feel the embracement of the organization. You have to have a culture that it's also directional, shows the people where are the main tracks that the company believes as values. So the pillars for me are the values, and the culture is the total umbrella that the people feel that they can run under it and make whatever they can do for the business development, but also for their development. And if this has a mistake as well, it's one part of the business, because you will always make mistakes when you're active. You will not make mistakes when you're completely inactive.
That's true.
So you need to decide also how freedom you want to give to your people, because they will develop with the business together.
Indeed, absolutely right. What are the guiding principles, if I may put it this way, that you use in leadership in a fast-changing environment? Do you have any specific guiding principle that you go by?
I will come again back to the previous one, meaning that fast transformation, I can speak now with the previous experience that I was saying about COVID, because in IKEA we made transformations overnight to create our own setup from a cash and carry environment to an omni-channel environment that we are still doing this today, but we had to do it overnight. If it would not be COVID, I would say that this might have taken us perhaps months or even a year. But now we did it overnight. And then we come to the cultural part, that was really the strong bond between the people, between the organization and among the people, that helped to make the movement in a good way, and people understood, okay, it's for the good of everybody. So we need to move forward. So sudden transformation, I think you have to have the culture as the guidance, the agility, again the communication, and again the final direction, which is our own next step to success. Because even from the crisis, we know that there are potential, there are opportunities that you can take over and to create a success story.
Okay, makes sense. And switching gears a bit, because culture is determined by the people that you have, and staying within the finance lane, as a finance leader yourself, how do you recognize exceptional finance talent? How do you do that? Especially
nowadays, we discussed before that there is a lack of talent. However, I think that you're not hiring somebody for the competence or for the experience, because we are talking for people that showing that they have the open-mindedness and the willingness to develop themselves. So for me, a talent has to do with the raw material that I see, and from the raw perspective, how can this person be developed and where can reach? Usually you understand the person that has the need to move further, the need to learn a lot, the need to go out of his scope and out of his bubble. Is not afraid of exposure, with the good meaning of the word, meaning that is not afraid to take the initiative, the responsibility, to move things further, and also to be present, even in moments that you think that shouldn't be, because the job profile doesn't say this, but you see that the person is there for you. You see that he's making the extra step, he's making the extra mile to deliver perhaps over the potential, even with mistakes, but you don't judge this. So I think it's the attitude above all, and of course, then you give the assignments, you give the space, apart from the monetary part that it's always a reward for everybody, regardless talent or not. But for a talent, you need to give also outside from the monetary motivation, also to give motivation for development. And if you recognize a person like this, it's a pity if you lose him because you didn't make the action on time.
Absolutely. I always say, regardless of which chair that you take in the board of a leadership team, that there are 3 R's that are very, very important. You have revenue, you have recruitment, and you have retention. And you just describe very well what you would do to attract someone, I would say, by making sure there's a right culture and that you're looking really at their personality and their mindset. What do you do to retain them?
You need to, first of all, you have identified the talents. Then you need to give them good assignments. You need to give them that assignment that they will feel triggered and they will be really interested to jump in. And sometimes the miracle is that the person comes by itself and asking you this assignment, meaning that you don't even have to wait sometimes. You are proactive, of course, you give the space for development, you give new bits and pieces that can create the interest, but it's really interesting when you see the talent that comes to you and say, oh, you know what, I would like perhaps to see this area, I would like to move myself outside from finance and to check a bit the logistics area or another area, the sales area in the company, because it's triggering me a lot. And of course, I think the responsibility of each manager is to help this person, to show him the path.
To do the transition.
Exactly, and to show the way and to say, okay, of course, I'm here for you to help you. I believe in you. And also I believe that if I develop you, I will be developed, the organization will be developed. So it's a win-to-win for all the stakeholders.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which leaders have you learned the most from and why?
Interesting. Reflecting now back to my past, I would say that I have been connected or I have been working with many different type of leaders, different completely. And you know, it's like a funnel. Everything is dropping in, but under the funnel there is a strainer, and it's filtering. So I don't think that I'm making this by myself uniquely. I mean, everybody's doing the same,
of course,
consciously or unconsciously, meaning that from the environment that you're operating and the leadership that you are receiving and the way that you are led, you are keeping the goods, things that you think are good, or you rejecting some attitudes. And it's very, very subjective and personal what is good or what is bad or wrong, let's say. You put the things according to your personal toolbox, your personal DNA, your personal professional agenda, how you are interpreting them. And if we say that we are applying leadership with different ways, it's also a fact that sometimes you need to take in consideration that not everywhere is the same leadership applicable.
Sure.
So I would say that I have been affected by many people. I have made my personal journey. I'm very happy that many times I find myself in challenges and I was not able, for example, to apply the same leadership in Greece with the same leadership in Sweden. And I'm super happy now that I'm in Belgium. So all these are creating a multi-environment that many times you have to be adjustable.
It's too easy, I have to ask. Of course, there are these nice cultural differences. You making the move from Greece to Sweden and then to Belgium. What are the key differences that you've seen that have challenged you as a finance leader to navigate these cultural differences?
You said it very correctly. I moved from Greece, then I spent 4 years in Bulgaria, which again was a cultural difference, even though the cultures are very close. Then in Sweden for another 3 years, and now in Belgium almost 2 years. So every time you need to adjust yourself in the organization, but also to the country's culture. And these two links are interconnected because the company organization is a small picture of the country.
Absolutely.
So my learning from this is huge because first time I was trying to apply the same principles, from one box to the other, but I realized after a while it's not working. Then third time I said, okay, it went better. And every time the journey is really, really interesting because you need to swipe off some things that you knew and to put new in the agenda. And of course this takes time, and the more experienced you are, the sooner you get in the role. So I think that this is the magical part of having worked not only in different sectors that I have been to, but also in different cultures, because this makes you much more open-minded and it opens your brain broader. And of course, this has a good impact to your leadership, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which bad decision, if I may call it, in your career are you happy you took? And why?
I would say my bad decisions were really bad. so we have to start from this.
That's fine.
As a fact, okay.
But I'm sure some of them led to great things.
I really have one that it was really an internal challenge and balance. And I will explain you why.
Yes, please.
When I was working in Greece as a CFO in a listed company, and the crisis struck then, one of the things that you have to do as a CFO is start checking all the lines of the P&L to try to find efficiencies. And of course, you know very well that one of the main lines is the staff cost.
Absolutely.
That everybody starts after a while focusing on and say, okay, yes, we did all the rest, but what about this? And of course, there was a pressure from the board, the main shareholders, that they want to find the efficiencies, but on top of that, some kind of staff reduction. I would say that this was a really tough exercise, because then you need to go on a personal level, and it's not very nice. And we were not such a huge organization from the population level, but we were huge on a level of turnover. It took me a couple of sleepless nights, I have to say, and I came with a proposal to the rest management team. And the proposal was, what if we reduce in all the levels of the company the salary frames, and to make some adjustments in order to see if this can work and can break even the dismissals that were on the table.
Sure.
I think that all of us agree that it's worth the effort and to try to convince the board and the shareholders. So when I was presenting this, I was feeling that, okay, internally I feel very proud with myself, because it's the right choice. But if you ask me if this is the right moment for my career, I would say definitely no.
Yeah.
But I think it went very good, because also we present with figures, with facts, not only with nice ideas. And at the end of the day, they realized that it will have also another good effect. And the good effect was that after a while, people really understood that there is a togetherness, there is a movement that we are making as a company. All together, nobody's out and he's out of the board, let's say, out of the train. We keep everybody on board it. We continue to do our tasks, and even with less, we try to stay together and to survive.
Wow, that's very impressive. It really says a lot about your moral compass and how you are, I would say, looking at decision taking and the general goal that exceeds P&L, but also, in a way, corporate social responsibility. But this with real impact to people. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I like reading books, if I can. Which 3 books should every finance leader read?
This is a very subjective. I can say what I've read from myself, and I like them. I enjoyed reading them, and I have come back again and again in some of them.
Sure.
Top of mind, I would say The Art of War by Sun Tzu, who is the Chinese general that was living the ancient times.
Yes.
And it's really a fantastic reading, because I read it a couple of times, and every time I'm discovering new meanings that I have passed by very fast, but then I realized that there's something more hidden there. And it's not by accident that it's still used in many military academies, but also it's used for negotiation purposes, because it's creating a strategy in the book. So for me, it's really a nice book.
Maybe a quick sidestep. There is also a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Yes.
It's just the reverse, but no. Okay, carry on.
You're right. Then another one, a classic one, I think it's from the 80s, The 7 Habits of the Highly Effective People.
Stephen Covey,
Stephen Covey, yes. Because I think describes very well some principles that business and people should be based on, and how you make your decision making, how you make your shortcuts.
Sure.
And then randomly I have read a couple of other ancient philosophers, because sometimes through philosophy you can make some reflections for things that were happening in the very early past, and now you can have them also today, and they are the same. I've read some philosophers like Greek, like Plutarch. I've read also some of the Middle Ages philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli with The Prince, etc., that are also giving you some things that you say, okay, this cannot be applicable, but you see there that many of the aspects that they describe are also applicable today, with the bad or the good meaning of it.
You just triggered my thinking, because I need to read more philosophy.
No, it's
That's
really
clear.
interesting, because
Thank
you
you very
see
much.
that there are some elements there that have application in today's environment. The technology is changing everything, but the human behavior
It's still the same.
is still the same.
Great. It's a strange question to ask, but I would like to ask you anyway. What legacy would you like to leave behind at IKEA as a finance leader?
You know, I think that every one of us is unique. Right? Let's start from this, that's a given fact. Everybody is using some main pillars or main tracks that he's having as a character, as a person, and as a professional. For me, it's really important to have a leadership based on transparency, based on trust, on togetherness, and also on meritocracy, because I believe that we have to give the right opportunity to the people that deserve it, really deserve it. And to have a good evaluation of the environment and the people that we're working with. Now, coming to the personal legacy, if I speak for myself, I would say that I have been late years, something like 10 years ago, been inspired a lot by IKEA's, let's say, mission. Because in IKEA, we have a mission to create an everyday better life for the many people.
Right.
And I was thinking, how can I adjust this on a personal level, on a personal agenda? So I would really like to create an everyday better life for the people that are working with, an every better day environment from the part that they are able to develop themselves, but also to develop the business, because I think that this goes hand in hand. People that are getting further, they make the extra for them, they develop, they can also develop the business. So I would like my people to perceive me as a person that making the best to promote this agenda.
Excellent. Nikos, it's been an insightful conversation with you. Very thankful for your time, and absolutely looking forward to a new chat with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for our podcast featuring our guest, Nikos Manalis, and hosted by Bright Obeng. We hope you've enjoyed our deep dive into the role and importance of finance within a successful multinational like IKEA. If you would like to support this episode, please share your comments or review on LinkedIn. To catch all the latest from Key Figures, you can follow our account at Key Figures Recruitment. Thanks again, and see you next time.